I think the first thing I need to do is clean this off, especially so I can match up the part and make sure that it's right. So I got a wire brush out here, got an air hose, shop air, and I'm going to blow this thing off. I'm going to clean this thing off, so I got to see what I'm doing there. I have it cleaned off now to where I can just about get started, but I want to point something out. This thing has been changed before, and it was changed by somebody. It could have been a good mechanic, but he was a terrible torch operator. He could not handle a cutting torch for nothing, and I'll show you why. This should never be, and it's not damaged. The part's not damaged, but when you can't cut a nut off or a bolt off, I mean, actually it was rivets when it was new, without burning into this main frame here, that is horrible. And I'm stepping on people's toes, and they need to be stepped on. If you work for me and you do something like that, you won't be allowed to use a torch, because you don't know what you're doing. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing what you're doing. You just learn how, that's all. And one of the reasons for that, before I say that, while I'm looking at this, I can cut those nuts off of these bolts without damaging the threads with a cutting torch. And I'm going to show you how. I'm not going to demonstrate with a torch, but I'm going to show you something about my torches. I got two sets. I got to find this one. Now, to me, the handle might be a little long, but the tip is very small. Look at this, the size. You know, a lot of people have cutting torches in shops that are way too big. The point of the cutting tip is way too big. That's for a junkyard for butchering cars. I'll show you another torch. Here's another one. It's slightly bigger than that one, but this one runs on propane or natural gas. If you had a natural gas setup, I don't have a regulator for natural gas for this. My natural gas regulator is for the house. It only gives you about, I don't know, somewhere between half a pound and a pound of gas. You need more than that. You need about 10 pounds of gas for a cutting torch. Anyway, this is a different torch, but it's small also. And that's very important, that you use a very small torch for doing precise cutting when you're working on something that that may not even belong to you, and you don't want to make a mess of it. Well, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up these little clamps that are holding this ABS wire, ABS sensor in place. I'm going to get this out of the way and off to the side. The brake line, I think it's far enough away. Even if I was going to use a torch, I wouldn't worry about moving the brake line. I'm hoping I don't have to use a torch. Hoping these will just come off with the ratchet, the impact. They probably will, but if not, then yeah, I can use a torch on that. But they had rivets, but to burn that deep into this main piece of work, that's not good. I'm going to put some spray on this lower nut down here and get that cotter pin worked out of there, and put some spray on all of this. That'll be my next step. Okay, I'm sticking the screwdriver in there after I scrape the gunk off of it. I'm just sticking it in here and twisting it like that to open the clamps up enough to get that wire out of there and get it out of the way. Well, I'm having a little trouble getting this cotter pin out, but it's moving now, and I want to show what I did. First, of course, I sprayed it with oil. And I took a screwdriver and just tapped the back of it with a hammer, a small hammer I'm using here, and I pushed the head of that in tighter, and that broke the rust loose. And then I came back around this side of it, and I grabbed it with the wire cutters that I used to straighten the thing out with. And where am I? Okay, I grabbed it out here with the wire cutters about ½ an inch away, because that's about as close as I can get. and then I hit the wire cutters out here with the hammer, but I squeezed it out here first, the ends of that cotter pin, so that I can hang on to it. And then the wire cutters are pushing it in because I'm tapping on the wire cutters with the hammer, and that is working. I can't demonstrate on camera because I need two hands and the camera's got to be kind of in there, but it is coming out. It is coming out. So here's the head of the cotter pin right there, and it's coming out. So maybe a little tip in case you're having trouble getting that out, because you really don't want to cut that off with the threads of the bolt, because one thing that can happen, and I've had it happen before, is if it were to work loose, if that ball joint were to work loose inside there, then it's going to spin, and it's going to be too tight on the threads to get that off. You're going to really be fighting with it. After you get the cotter pin out, then you put a long wrench on here. In my case, it's 1 1/16, and I think my steering wheel is locked right now, so I can double wrench this and push it this direction. Double wrench means you hook another wrench on there like this. You always put the box down on a nut that's tight. Don't put the open end on a tight nut. You'll round the corners off of the nut. Put the box end, or the round end, put that on there, and then this end is hanging out here. You can double wrench it like this. I'll do that slow motion for those that haven't done that before. The side that's over here, turn your wrench facing this direction, hook it on there, and push that. Because you're not going to get a socket wrench on it. Well, you might get a socket and a long breaker bar on it. You can try that if you got one. But I do this, and then I'm careful not to let this thing slip off like that. Now, you guys going to school for mechanic work, yeah, they're going to tell you you can't do that. Well, welcome to the real world. This is what we do. Okay, it broke loose. I really probably could have done it without double wrenching it, but it broke loose. I can go on ahead and take that nut off. That comes off first before you take these off. I know most of you guys don't have a cutting torch. You can take an angle grinder and grind those rivets off, or you can use a chisel and a hammer, but you'd have to keep that chisel sharp. You have to keep it, take it to the bench grinder and keep it sharp. And you can just work on the edge of it all the way around. Work on the edge and keep working your way towards the middle, and then when you got it all off of there, go on ahead and punch it through from the top with a hammer and a punch. But try the angle grinder. But when you get to this one over here, you got to be careful you don't cut this thing here. I mean, it's not a big deal if you do cut that up. So what? You can stick a wire tie around there and hold that on or whatever. But anyway, that's how you get those off of there without a torch. Now it's time to knock that thing out of there. You got to break this thing off of there before you take these. In my case, they're bolts, nuts and bolts. Leave the ball joint attached to the top. You break loose the steering knuckle first. That's what they call this big steel part that all these pieces attach to. Anyway, I'm going to try to leave this brake line bracket on there. There's two ways of knocking that thing off of there. One, you can either smack it really hard right on the side, and that might take it off. It just about always works on these here tie rod ends. It just about always works on those, but on these bigger ones, it might be, you might not get it off that way, but you can try it if you got room. The brake line is in the way. I'd have to turn the steering wheel one way or the other, which I still might end up doing. Or I can just try to get this in here. It's got a wedge, and sometimes it's better to go this way, sometimes it's better to go this way. It'll be better for me to go this way, but I don't have room to hit it from in there. So I am going to have to turn this wheel, because I got to smack that thing, and I got to smack it hard. I got a 4-pound one-hand sledgehammer here. Alright, I got the camera mounted a little ways back, about 4 feet, so I got it zoomed in a little bit so I don't hit the camera while I'm trying to do this. I can try smacking it in here and see. It's not that good at aim. I don't know if I can. It's not going to work anyway because there's no, I got the jack raised up underneath it, so there's tension on top a little bit. We'll just do it with this. If I don't hit the fender there. Okay, now we got that off. Now it's time to take that off. Anyway, get them off of there. But the boot on this one, it's already got grease in it. It's already got the nipple in it. Usually the nipple's not in there. Maybe somebody sent this back. Put it on facing the direction that your bolt holes are going to line up. And raise this thing up and put it in there. I'm going to have to tap on it with a hammer to get it to go face the right direction because it's bent inwards too much. I need to bend it out. The rest of it should be pretty self-explanatory. You just put your pieces back together. It's got direct. What does this warning thing say? Usually nothing. See instruction sheet for improper information regarding required checks for suspension damage. These checks must be made prior to installing this part. Failure to heed these warnings may cause part failure resulting in loss of vehicle control and possible personal injury. So, common sense, didn't really need to have that in there, but we did that on a video right before this one, checking the front end, checking all the suspension. So I'm going to go ahead and bolt all this together. Got those two in. I thought, well, maybe I better record some of this. I just get up here and push on it until things line up. Get the bolt up in there. Kind of pushing on it with my belly. Of course, you got to do this before you tighten the bottom down. Go ahead, tighten those down, and then put the bottom here. And put these on the bottom part, of course. Tighten that thing down all the way tight, and then try to tighten it a little bit more to get this to line up in one of the holes. Might be a good idea to make sure that hole is facing the right direction to get the pin in it, because if it's not, it's going to be hard. And it's really not. It's kind of facing this way. So what I'm going to do is, after I tighten this down, I'm going to turn the steering wheel back around. That'll keep the ball joint from turning with it. And then the ball joint won't turn because it's not on there tight. Steering wheel will turn, then my bolt hole will be facing straight through. That way I can put the cotter pin in. And if you're using a 3/8 impact like I am, and this is a quality one, so you got to be careful that you don't break those off, because they will. This is strong enough to break those 5/16 bolts off, but I still have the old ones if that happens. Put one of the old ones in. Maybe a third of a turn after it seats. No more than that for sure. Alright, now I'm going to turn the steering wheel back around so I can get the cotter pin in. Okay, I got my hole for the cotter pin lined up where I can just go straight in sideways. So I got the steering wheel turned over to the other side, and it's now if I had tightened that nut down first, then the whole thing would have turned with it, and the hole would have still been facing the brake rotor instead of facing out to the side. Stick your pry bar in there someplace. I stuck mine up here, and then push that down so that get this thing on there. Get it tied to that, or have somebody else push on it with their hand. All I gotta do now is tighten this stuff down, put this ABS wire back in its place, and then grease it. Don't forget to grease it. You got to do that. And while you're greasing it, anything else that needs grease, get that while you're at it. Should be all I got to do on this video. We're done. So thanks for watching.